won't say how long, but a long time. First off, what do you say? Give Margaret, or Smitty the second is what my dad calls her. Give Margaret Ann a nice round of applause on the big 5-0. Huh? Yeah. And many, many more, Margaret. I said, I'm not telling mine, but she's older than me, that's what. Roses are red, violets are blue. I laugh like the devil because I'm younger than you. Although I don't look it. She kept that beautiful girlish figure. She used to make me jealous back in the days when we were kids running around together. Margaret always had the perfect figure, and I believe it, back then I was tall and skinny. That is no longer a problem. Yeah, Twiggy, right. And I remember Margaret and I, we decided, we had read in a magazine that how the Miss America girls were chosen because they had these good-looking legs, you know, long legs. Well, Margaret was griping because she was short. She said, I've got short legs. Well, I was griping because mine were so skinny you could have drove a freight train through them. You know, like right through, and she was laughing at me, and I got mad at her because they said the way you could prove that you had perfect legs is you put a dime. No, it was a quarter up here, right in between the calves right there, and if you could hold it. And then you put a dime between your knees and a nickel between this part of your leg, whatever that is. And she was perfect, and I wouldn't speak to her for 3 days. You know, I didn't have anything to hold the 50 cents with. There was not. I had to stick my hands through there and wave at you, you know. I can't do that anymore. And she used to laugh at me because I wanted to sing. I started doing country music, and she says, what is that? And I don't think anybody in Lincoln High School played a guitar during that time except me. And I remember the band that we got together in high school was called the August Heat Wave. I mean, when you're hot, right? I was the only girl in the band. I didn't sing. All I did was play guitar for a guy that looked like Elvis. And then he'd get up and do Elvis, and I'd act like it on the guitar, and that was it. They didn't let me sing because it had come out country. Let's do a real good, no offense, Diana, but we're going to do it. Everybody join me. Come on, Margaret. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Margaret Ann. Happy birthday to you. Yeah. May you live 100 years. May you drink a million beers. Get plastered, you bad girl. Happy birthday to you. You bet. Thank you. Well, I'm the family entertainment because Smitty and Catherine are just like being my own family. I spent just as much time over at their house as they did at my house, and so on. And those were the kind of people that they've always been, and I love them dearly. Catherine asked if I brought my ukulele. I could do some Tiny Tim if you'll tiptoe through the tulips, right, with the ukulele. But anyway, Margaret and I, we liked our rock and roll, and I just was finding out what country music was back then, and it was still hillbilly back in those days. It was still Grand Ole Opry type hillbilly music, but Margaret liked Elvis. And we used to, you know, try and dance. And we were at that age where you weren't sure, you know, what you were doing, and we didn't want to get out and embarrass ourselves, but we had a good time dancing. And one time, our favorite story is we heard this disc jockey on WGN out of Des Moines, and he had a sexy voice, and he was on at night on a 50,000 watt. First time, I think, one of the biggest 50,000 watt stations of country music. And so we sent for a picture. I'm not going to tell you his name, but we sent for his picture, and he was the ugliest thing we'd ever seen. I gave up country music for about a week. I won't say the man was a good disc jockey, but Lord, I had to be happy he had a voice. There wasn't a whole lot left to go with him. And I know Margaret was always in the kitchen, and I was always playing. Well, I was playing ukulele back then. That's why Catherine remembers that. I hadn't graduated to the 6-string guitar yet. And we lived across the street, or my grandparents lived across the street, and we lived almost right next door to the Schmidts. And my grandmother was semi-invalid, and she couldn't get away from me. So anytime I had a new song, Margaret would go over there and listen, and my grandmother couldn't get away from me. She'd be my audience. And I think my first song, and Margaret applauded me on this, went like this. Let's see. My Bonnie lies over the ocean. And I'd stop it. My Bonnie lies over the ocean. My Bonnie lies over the sea. My Bonnie lies, oh my God, over the ocean. Oh, bring back my Bonnie to me. I could get through a song, and then I'd always find her in the kitchen, and I'd say, I'm getting the heck out of here. And I'll tell you what, Margaret makes music with her cooking, and she's unlimited energy. I don't know where it comes from. I wish I had more of it. I know where it comes from. It comes from Smitty. I don't think he sat still. I don't think I saw Smitty that often. He was a fireman, and he was gone a lot. And I remember one night Margaret was over at my house, and we were watching TV, and I have an older brother that got real ornery. And we know about brothers, don't we, Margaret? You got a couple of younger ones. Johnny used to throw rocks at me a lot. That was if he liked you. And my brother was scratching on the windows, and Margaret and I were home alone that night, and we were scared to death, and we didn't know he was out there doing that, and so we called Catherine, and Smitty was at the fire station. He had to stay overnight there, and Catherine and Margaret calls her mom and says, Mom, there's some guy, I think there's some guy outside. We're scared over here. And so Catherine, about 10 minutes later, she called back, you're right, there's some guy out there. That's helped us a lot. She stood there and watched him, but she couldn't see who it was. And, well, I don't know if Catherine ever heard the rest of the story, but it ended up being my brother, and you had to come in the back door, and there was like some back steps you come up, and then there was a doorway into our dining room. Well, I had the ashtray, and Margaret had the broom. And we heard somebody messing with the back door, and it didn't dawn us to call the police. I don't know why. All of a sudden, my brother comes charging through the door, and I dropped the ashtray, and she nailed him right in the chops. And he went back outside. We wouldn't let him back in the house. But she was dead-eye, I'll tell you. And Dorothy got to know my brother a little bit. I remember on Halloween he put a coat on and he had a mask on and he was smoking a cigarette and the smoke was coming out his eyes. And Margaret and I let him in the back door at the Schmidt house, right? Dorothy was in the front room and didn't know. And here come Bruce up behind her and like that, and she came up out of that chair about yay high, and she kicked Margaret out of the house that night. She had to come over and stay with me. So we have some great memories. But I've got to do a song for Margaret. When Cousin Minnie was in her prime, she brushed her teeth just all the time. Now she's old and getting gray. She lost her teeth from tooth decay. Too old, she's too old to cut mustard anymore. She's getting too old, she's too old to cut mustard anymore. old, too old. She's too old to cut the mustard anymore. She's getting too old, she's too old to cut the mustard anymore. Not true, Margaret's gonna go another 50 years. Well, come on in. The guys are gonna love this outfit, I'll tell you, that's sexy. Now, she would have to do that to me when I was feeling pretty good, see? I used to have a figure like that, but I think it left me. Now you call it an hourglass figure. My sand has shifted. This guy liked that joke. I said, okay. Well, at Bob's party, I probably told all the Dolly Parton jokes, and I thought, well, I can't come in like Dolly tonight. It wouldn't do a whole lot for Margaret except make us both cry if I put the balloons in there. I've got a new Dolly joke. I don't think I've told Bob this one yet. You know, Dolly Parton's got a new single out, Bob. Her strap broke. Did I say that? Well, Margaret, many, many happy years. And I know these folks are, let's give our disc jockeys a nice round of applause. I've been really enjoying hearing the coasters and Searching and all those good songs. And I remember when the rock and roll first came out, Margaret and I were going crazy. We loved it. And let me stand up here and kind of do it a little bit. But I didn't know Margaret was into Elvis that much. I guess I had already gone on the country music path. And